I would literally, Lewis, I would decide to believe like it's gonna be a yes, and I behaved accordingly. Like I would say, okay, thank you, but one day it will be a yes, and I'm so excited for when that happens. And then what I would do is every time we get like a press placement, or we would be launching a new product or whatever, I would send that buyer who kept saying no, and I'd be like, great news, we just got, in this magazine or whatever, and like one day when your customers get to try this in their store, they're gonna love it. And I think they probably thought I was crazy, but I just decided to believe. When we have low self-worth, it can still look like everything's great on the outside, right? There are people that are crushing it in every area of life, and they are not fulfilled and they don't know why. Or they're really unhappy, or they don't believe they're worthy of things and they don't know why. And they're still just striving to be enough. So when we have low self-worth, what it looks like is we feel stuck and we don't know why. We believe that we are smart and have all this skill set, and we maybe have worked really, really hard. We've studied all this stuff, but we're stuck. We feel stuck and we're not going for it. And we don't know why. And that's how self-worth will show up in our lives. And it could be in your career. It could be that you are an artist and you write poetry, or you paint and you still haven't shared it with the world and you don't know why. It could look like you have an amazing idea and you've been developing a plan to launch a business around it, but you keep spending 8 hours a day scrolling Instagram and you don't know why. You're procrastinating and you don't know why. When we don't believe we are worthy of something, we will find a way to stay stuck and to not go for it at all, which is why building self-worth is so important. Now, there's a lot of us that have medium level self-worth, right? Medium or even medium high. What that looks like is we go for things, we go for them, we go for them, but then we'll sabotage them along the way, or we'll hit a plateau. We'll build our business to be 6 figures or 7 figures, and we hit a plateau, and we don't realize it's because we actually, at an identity level, don't believe we're worthy of going above that. We'll be a CEO crushing it and hitting numbers in our company, but we won't share our real ideas that could take it to the next level because we don't want to take a risk, because we don't quite feel worthy of it. That's what that looks like. And then a lot of us that have medium to high self-worth, right? What that looks like is I keep achieving everything, but I still don't feel I'm enough. I still miss fulfillment. I still feel like something's missing. So I'm just going to keep hustling, working harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. You and I are people that have so many dreams and goals and huge ambitions. And a lot of our friends do, a lot of our people we've been so blessed to meet do. One of the biggest lies, okay, and I want to just tackle this real fast, people have is, oh, if I feel like I'm enough as I am, and I'm fully worthy as I am, which you are, but if I feel I'm fully worthy as I am, maybe I'll lose my ambition and maybe I'll lose my drive. I don't want that. I like feeling like I'm never enough, so I work harder and harder. It is the biggest lie. When you feel fully worthy, exactly as you are, it does not kill your ambition. It actually fuels it, because now you don't worry anymore if you fail, because it's not tied to your self-worth. You are rock solid enough as you are. So you actually, when you have strong self-worth, you actually take more risks. You actually have more ambition. The difference is when you achieve those things, and when you serve and give and create and offer everything that's in your soul to the world, you're actually fulfilled when you do it, because you feel deep down inside enough as who you are. Whether you're someone who is stuck and you don't know why, or you're someone who's crushing the world's definition of success and you don't know why you're not fulfilled, and you don't know why you still feel like it's not enough or you're not enough, it's almost always because of self-worth and learning how to raise that underneath it all.
Literally, I was going to ask you, because I have these two sides to me. One where it's I love the idea of you being perfect just the way you are. The amount of things you can let go of, all the stress and the worry of, am I pretty enough? Do I look good enough? Am I smart enough? All of that, right? I understand it. It really does allow you to let go. But then the other side, that if you're enough and you're smart enough and everything, what does propel you to go for more? What does then propel you to improve, to build better skill sets? I'm not even going to say to achieve higher things. I'm just going to say to build better skill sets in whatever. Yeah. And you just answered it, because that's the disconnect sometimes that I think about and I worry about in myself, that if I think that, no, Lisa, you're perfect the way you are, then I won't keep going. And so I kind of, I liken it to, like I just have like these dual people in my head, and I've got like the one voice in my head that's like, I love you, Lisa, you're good enough. And I go, come on, what the fuck are you doing? You know, on the other side of my brain screaming at me.
And you need both. This is the thing, you need both for fulfillment, right? To feel you are enough, worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are, and also to be growing and building self-confidence and contributing. For ultimate fulfillment, you need all that. And the biggest challenge is that most people only do the stuff where they're growing and building confidence, but underneath they don't feel enough as they are. And that's when you can do all of it and never feel fulfilled and not know why. How many people have six-pack abs, have business that are crushing it, they're doing all the things, they're on the cover of magazines, they have 50 billion followers, and they still don't feel enough, right? So they're actually not able to enjoy any of the stuff that they're doing or to feel fulfillment, you know? So that's like the one thing, is building that sense of worthiness, that you are enough exactly as you are, and you're worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are. You're able to then enjoy it. And you also know, you know what? If I put myself out there and I fall flat on my face, you know, it might hurt my confidence, but it doesn't hurt my worth.
Dude, that's so strong. I mean, I wrote a whole book about confidence, and it never really, like I said in the book multiple times, like confidence is a muscle. It like, you have to build it, and then also it can ebb and flow. It's not like you always have the confidence. And so when I read your book and that worthy piece, I was like, oh my God, that's the underlying, the foundation to then be able to build your confidence. But if you don't actually believe in yourself and have the worth, then you're not going to go for it. Because let's say you believe, you've started It Cosmetics, right? And you've gone out and you've had a million rejections, but you've got one that you actually think the deal's going to come through. So you spent 3 years, you and your husband, like saving every penny, building the company, really sacrificing, and then you go to this one guy and you think the deal is done, the dreams come true. And if you don't mind sharing that story of what he says to you, because this goes to that moment again. I am obsessed with this movie, Sliding Doors. Have you ever seen it, with Gwyneth Paltrow? So it's, my audience heard me speak about it 1,000 times, but it's a story where she's about to board the underground, the tube, and she makes the tube, and then it cuts to a moment and it repeats where she's running for the underground and she doesn't make the tube. And these are the two paths. And you literally, throughout the whole movie, see her life going in completely opposite directions, just by making the door or not making the door. And when I think about the story that you're about to share, that moment of these two paths, where it's like, one leads you to selling it to L'Oreal for 1.2 billion, and the other one leaves you on the floor crying and never making anything of yourself.
Yes. Yeah, the moments that define our destiny, right? And how we handle those moments, right? It's how we handle those moments. And, you know, so the one particular rejection that you're talking about, the story out of thousands of rejections, by the way, anybody today right now who's feeling rejected, or like they're facing setbacks or any of those things, like, they are never an indication of your potential for success. They are not. And the key is to never let anyone else's doubts about you turn into doubts about yourself in your own head. That is everything. Like, how we handle those moments, it's not if they're going to happen or not, it's how we handle them, right? And like, what are the tools in our toolbox to pull out and decide how we're going to handle those moments can change everything, right? And so in this one example, we had faced, oh my gosh, years of rejection. We were down to no money. I didn't know how we were going to make it as a company. Everyone kept saying no, and that they didn't think the business was going to work and all this. And I finally got a meeting with a potential investor who's really well-known, private equity company. They're very famous for taking like a lot of small unknown brands, turning them into these big companies that all of us shop for in the grocery store or big box retailers or whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, if they invest in us, because they got a hold of our product and really liked it. I was like, if they invest in us, like, it's going to be life-changing. Like, A, we're not going to go bankrupt. B, maybe they can use their power to get me into all these retail stores that keep telling me no, like all this stuff, right? I was like, this is huge. And so we started taking meetings, and meeting after meeting after meeting. It got to the final meeting. We had lawyers involved. We were in the diligence phase, which meant they were going to acquire the business or invest a big stake. And it got down to the final meeting where I was presenting the whole product pipeline. And at the very end of the meeting, like, I thought this was going to be the moment, like my saving grace, right? And the head guy was about 3 feet from me. And then his whole team was behind him, and they were awesome. And he says to me, like, congratulations, you should be so proud. This is a really, really great product, but we've decided it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in It Cosmetics. Now, this was years of hundreds and hundreds of no's in. I was hoping this would be the one. And he says that to me, and I say, okay, can you tell me why? Because feedback is usually a gift. And I said, can you tell me why? And he just got really quiet. And he's standing about 3 feet from me. And he says, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I was like, yes, please. And then he just paused for the longest time. And I remember I started feeling my heartbeat in my ears because, like, I didn't know what he was going to say. And then he says these words to me. I remember the moment his mouth started opening, and he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And when he said those words to me, I actually never felt any anger toward him. But what happened instantly was like a lifetime of self-doubt and body doubt, like flooded my body all at once. So I actually felt when he was saying these words, like I was staring my own fear straight in the eye. But the moment he said those words, I got this feeling deep down inside. I'll never forget this feeling in my gut, like my knowing, right? Not my head. My head was like, lifetime of self-doubt, body doubt, I'm not enough, all that, right? But the moment he said those words to me, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. I got this strong feeling in my gut that said, he's wrong. He's wrong. Like I felt it. Didn't know how I was going to prove it, but I felt it. Right now, Lisa, 89% of girls and women will opt out of meaningful activities with friends, with family, in public because they don't like how they look.
89%?
89%.
Holy shit.
So there is a whole chapter in here about do not wait on your weight to live your best life. I do not care what your weight is, but do not wait on your weight to live your best life. I think back to so many times in my life before I learned how to build self-worth when I waited on my weight to go on the date, to get in the photo, to attend the reunion. So many of us do this. And it's like, the time for change has come. It is why I wrote Worthy. No girl, no woman, no person left behind. 89% of us opt out of meaningful activities because we don't like how we look. What has this cost us in our life? In our relationships, in our friendships, in our joy, in our fulfillment. So in the moment this investor tells me this, and I go cry, in the next 6 years, there are moments that come to me where I'm like, okay, well, maybe I do just need to change my weight. All those things, right? But I know that's a lie. I know it in my soul. I know it in my soul. And so when we talk briefly about like the 4 R's and reframing rejection, in this case, every time his words would come to my mind, where he's like, I don't believe women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight, that rejection was really painful for me. And I would reframe it and redefine it with a new definition of, okay, rejection's God's protection. Rejection's God's protection, right? For some of us, it'll be rejection's the universe's protection. And I don't know how yet, but I chose to believe it. I chose to redefine that rejection and every other one to something I believe was true so that I was not fearful of future rejections. And so even after that painful rejection, every time those words would echo back in my mind, I would instantly, like literally intercept them, replace them with, oh, no. Rejection is God's protection. I cannot wait to see what's going to happen because God has got me. And yeah, that dude didn't believe in me, but you know what? I know it's protection. I don't know how yet. And I just kept going and kept going. And 6 years later, the day L'Oreal bought our company for $1.2 billion cash, the day we had over 1,000 employees, the day we had finally become number 1 in a bunch of the retailer stores we were in that had said no for years.
The day you became the very first female CEO, baby, of L'Oreal.
Yeah, first, yeah. And they're a public company. And so they did, they announced the purchase price, right? And then that I was the first female CEO of a brand in their 100+ year history. But I did not know they were going to announce the purchase price. I think I had friends and family that thought maybe business is doing well, but they didn't know. Like nobody, you know what I mean? Those aren't things you just. And the day they announced the deal. It was everywhere. Homepage of the Wall Street Journal. And that was the first day I heard from that guy in over 6 years. And he said, the potential investor, right? And he says, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong. And in that moment, you know the movie Pretty Woman?
Yes.
You know the movie Pretty Woman where she goes in the store and they won't help her? They won't help her. And then she goes back in a few days later. So what I wanted to say to him was, big mistake. Huge, huge. And I wanted to go even further and go, I can give you 1.2 billion reasons why. It was a huge mistake. But I didn't say that. I kept it really, really classy because I didn't want to be him at that day. But here's what's wild, and this is why I go into reframing rejection so deeply and worthy, because so many of us have had rejection or failure in our life, and it's so painful that it keeps us stuck. And at worst, we think we're a failure, and it becomes an identity level thing. So I go deep into how do you actually reframe it. And what I want to say is that, you know, I had been telling myself for years, rejection is God's protection, around why this guy rejected me that time. And at that moment, 6 years later, when we sold to L'Oreal, what I realized is, oh my goodness, like, had he believed in me back then, I was so desperate. I probably would have given him the majority of the company for like no money. I just want to stay alive. Like, I didn't know how we were going to make it. But because he didn't believe in me, the day we sold to L'Oreal, we were the largest shareholders. And it was like, thank God he didn't believe. Rejection's God's protection. Like, these things we know in our soul are true. And it's about how do we build that muscle, to use your words, how do we build that muscle and that skill set that when these things are happening to us, the setbacks, the rejections, the things that don't go our way, that we pull those tools out of the toolbox and we apply them right then and there. Okay, in this case, rejection's God's protection, and we believe it. Like, how do we apply those tools, trusting that they're right and they're true? Because that's how we build resiliency. That's how we raise our self-worth. That's how we keep going for things. That's how we don't let setbacks hold us back. Like, we believe, okay, this is a setback, but I know most setbacks are setups for what I'm called to do next. Like, I'm going to have a faith in that universe. And it's not just about, oh, let me think positive. It's like, oh, let me believe that in my soul. Let me believe this new reframe in my soul, because it is true. Like, when you check in with your soul, again, I said this earlier, every person listening to us right now, yes, your confidence can be tied to your skills and abilities, your willingness to try and go for it, how you feel you stack up against other people. You know, there's studies that show the boxer who wins the match is automatically 30% more confident afterwards, right? Our confidence rises and falls. But underneath that strong self-worth, separate from confidence, which is very important, your self-worth, this is just what I want everyone to know right now, is right now, as you are, I do not care if you are like me and you waitressed in a strip club and you waitressed at Denny's and you were doubting yourself out of your own destiny and you thought love was confused with attention, and you thought significance was an external praise, was being confused with success, and all those things, right? You thought achievement was being confused with belonging. I don't care where you're at, what past mistakes, what failures, I do not care. I don't care who you've hurt and you regret. I mean, how many mistakes you've made. Like, right now, exactly as you are fully worthy. Nobody can give it to you or take it away. Like, you just are. And I believe, Lisa, that the greatest journey we're on in this lifetime is learning how to believe and embrace that, because when we do, we are unstoppable. That's when we are unstoppable. That is when we are in alignment with our assignment. That is when we walk into our calling. That is when we stop doubting ourselves out of our own destiny. When we believe we are worthy, it changes everything for the better in our lives. For so many of us, we feel stuck, or we feel like, oh, you know, I don't have what it takes to accomplish my dreams, or to find love again, or to have healthy friendships as an adult. And we tell ourselves all these lies that lead to self-doubt, because literally, Lisa, like, we don't soar to the level of our goals and dreams. We stay stuck at the level of our self-worth. So when you change your self-worth, you change every aspect of your life. And the beautiful thing is, it does not matter where you come from. It does not matter if you have waitressed at a strip club like me. It does not matter if you have, worked hard waitressing tables at Denny's like I have, or if you've built a billion-dollar business like I have. None of that actually matters. Like, you're fully worthy exactly as you are. And when we learn to unlearn those lies that lead to self-doubt and literally wake up our worthiness, it's the one thing that will change everything in our life.
I want to mention, I want to dive into this idea of worthy, of how can we feel worthy if there's so many people out there right now. And I know part of it is this process you just brought us through, but what is it like for yourself? What does that word worthy mean, and what's the, what are some of the ways and some of the narratives people need to adopt in order to feel worthy?
Yeah, it is. Self-worth is the one thing that literally changes everything in every other area of your life, your relationships, your business, your goals, your dreams. Like, we do not, rise to what we believe is possible for us in life. We will fall to what we believe we're worthy of. And in our relationships, in our friendships, in our careers, our ambitions, our goals, our dreams, like we don't soar to the level of those goals and dreams. We stay stuck at the level of our self-worth. And another way to put it that I talk a lot about in Worthy in the book is how in life we actually don't become what we want. We become what we believe we're worthy of. And there are a lot of people that maybe know what they want and they think that's enough. Or then they take action and they work so hard and build all the skills and the confidence to be really good at it. And then they may even go a step further and know their why for why they're doing what they're doing, which is so important. But all of that isn't enough often to get the thing you want unless you also learn to believe you're worthy of it. And a couple big things that I want to share, and I wrote Worthy. It's packed with 20 tools on how to build self-worth. And I go over all of the lies that lead to self-doubt and how do you ignite those truths that wake up worthiness. Because what I've seen happen and what I lived through, and I think so many entrepreneurs or passionate people or high achievers or perfectionists have gone through this, what I'm about to share. And a lot of people go through it their whole life and never understand why they still, no matter how much they achieve, no matter how much they accomplish, no matter how many of their big dreams have happened, they still don't feel enough. They still feel like something's missing. And one of the biggest epiphanies I've ever had in my life was after I thought I had accomplished all of it. The company sold for $1 billion. I got invited to lunch with Oprah, which I had dreamed of my whole life. I'd been on the Forbes list, like you shared. All these things were happening. I finally, I was very confident. And let me just pause for a minute, okay? Because this is so important. So many of us confuse self-confidence with self-worth, and they're very different. So many of us think what we need is more self-confidence, but what we actually need is self-worth. And really quickly, and this is huge for your business, for your life, for your fulfillment, for your joy. Self-confidence, while it's an internal trait, is based so much on the external. It's based on our own assessment of our skills and abilities, based on how we think we stack up and compare to others and measure up against others, our willingness to try and go for it, our ability to keep promises to ourselves, how much of the world's definition of success we have. And our confidence is actually fragile. It's volatile. It rises and falls all the time, right? There's a study that shows the boxer who wins the match is automatically 30% more confident. Our confidence fluctuates. Our self-worth is the deep internal knowing that you are worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are, not as you achieve, not as what's happened all around you, exactly as you are, exactly as God made you. And if you think right now, and just to ask everyone this question, if you've ever had a big goal or dream and you thought, once I get that thing, then I'll be happy, then I'll be fulfilled, then I'll be enough. And for some people, it's their business hitting a certain threshold, or for other people, it's when I finally find that romantic partner, or when I get married or have kids or get the 6-pack abs or the dream car, whatever it is. And then you work so hard, whether it's for months or years or decades, and you finally get that thing. And then what happens? If you arrive at that thing and you're like, I thought this was going to solve all my problems and make me feel so happy and fulfilled and fully enough. And then we get there, and for a lot of us, we're happy for like a month or a week. And before we know it, we're back to feeling like something's missing. And if this has ever happened to you, it's because in the pursuit of those goals and dreams, we build a lot of confidence, we have a lot of growth. Those things are really important, but none of them build self-worth. And if we fundamentally do not believe we are enough as we are, which is a lie, by the way, but if we believe that, it does not matter how much we accomplish, how much of the world's definition of fame, success, money, contentment, whatever it is that we achieve, you still take you with you. And so many people have built all this self-confidence, and they feel like something's missing in their lives. So then they think something must be missing in my marriage. I'm feeling like it's not enough, or I'm going to quit this job. I'm feeling like it's not enough. I'm feeling unfulfilled. And what they don't realize is they don't have a net worth problem. They have a self-worth problem. Like when you fundamentally do not feel you are enough underneath it all, no amount of self-confidence, no amount of achievement, no amount of the world's definition of success can ever solve that. And the way I learned this was after my entire life's dream of like meeting Oprah. Since I was a little girl, I always dreamed of it. And I had sold my company and all the things were happening that you shared in the beginning. And I was so confident, Josh. And then I got invited to her house for lunch. She and I had a 3-hour lunch. At the very end of it, she gave me her cell phone number and said, you can call me anytime. Call me anytime. And the lunch was so good. And I left there and I did not call her for 4 years. And in that 4-year window, I told myself things like, I just need to think of the perfect thing to say. Or, everyone wants something from her. I'm going to prove I don't. All those things. And 4 years later, I realized I didn't call her because deep down inside, I didn't believe I was worthy of being her friend. And here's how low self-worth shows up in our life. When we really have low self-worth, we can have all the confidence and skills and abilities and look like we're crushing it to everyone on the outside. But if underneath it all, we don't feel we're enough and we have low self-worth, we will stay stuck. We'll never go for the thing. If we have some self-worth, we'll go for the things, but we'll sabotage them, which is what I did with meeting Oprah. I had all the confidence in the world, but underneath it all, I didn't have strong self-worth at the time. Even though to the world, it looked like I must just have it all. And if we have medium to high self-worth, but not super high, what that looks like is we'll go for the things, we'll even get the things, but we arrive at them not feeling fulfilled, perpetually unfulfilled, like something's missing, like we're not enough forever. And so building self-worth, and first of all, just being aware of it. I know right now there's going to be someone listening to us that's like, oh my goodness, this episode was for me. I thought I just needed more self-confidence. I needed to achieve more, when really that's not the thing. The thing is like, how do I learn truly to believe I'm enough exactly as I am? And the last thing I'll say is a lot of people worry, well, wait, if I believe I'm enough as I am I going to lose my ambition? I don't want to lose my ambition. And it's like, no, actually, when you believe you're enough as you are, like you become more ambitious because it doesn't really, you're fearless about what will happen if you fail or fall flat on your face or any of the other things, because you know it doesn't impact your self-worth, which is unwavering. So it's really the one thing that changes everything. And the very first step, which I hope and pray is happening for someone in this episode right now too, is just that, like, wow, the awareness of this. And then going, how do I take steps to build that self-worth? And so it's really why I wrote Worthy. There's a whole chapter. There's over 20 tools in the book on how you do this. There's also a chapter for anyone who has a strong relationship and has strong faith in their life on how believing God's word over your own self-doubt can be one of the quickest self-worth shortcuts. There's so many in there, but it's just, I'm so excited to you can probably feel me like jumping through, like jumping out of my chair, because it's just the one thing that day I realized, wow, I don't feel worthy, was the day I became obsessed with studying self-worth. And I did call Oprah that day. We taught a course together this year. Like, so many things would have never happened because I came so close to doubting myself out of my own destiny.
Here's a big one for me is changing my relationship with rejection.
Yes.
And this is, for every person listening, when you change and watching us too, when you change your relationship with rejection, you change your entire life.
Yeah.
You change your entire life. And I think, fear of failure and rejection kills so many dreams. It keeps us stuck. And this was huge for me. And so just to take everyone through a tactical, let's just go there. Let's do a tactical exercise right now, because this is something that outside of this episode, you're going to want to reapply it, spend more time on it, do the work on it. But just right now, as you're listening or watching us, answer this question to yourself super honestly. When you fail at something or get rejected, what is the first thought that goes through your head? Very first thought. When you fail at something or get rejected, what's the first thought that goes through your head? For me, most of my whole life, it's, oh, yep, there's proof again. I'm not enough.
Yep.
I'm not enough.
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah? Is that yours then?
Yes.
Same?
Yeah.
Right now, whatever your thought that just came to your mind, right? That your instant truth first response, that is your current definition of rejection, right? So for me, it's, there's proof I'm not enough, right? For a lot of people, it's something like, oh, yep, I'm not smart enough. I don't have what it takes. I'm stupid. I'm, X, Y, or Z. I didn't go to the right school. I didn't come from the right family. I don't have what it takes. It's because of my weight. Oh, whatever it might be, right? We all have this definition of rejection. And I want you to just take note of yours right now, because this is really powerful. Don't skip over this. This one thing will change your life. If you take note of what is your current definition of rejection. For me, it's I'm not enough, right? And
can I tell you what mine's more specifically?
Yeah.
Just a little bit more refined?
Yeah.
Because I want to meet you in the middle on it. I think mine is like, I don't belong here.
yeah.
So it's slightly different, but like, I don't belong here. I don't know. I think there's probably some things where when I was a kid, my dad was like, we don't belong. But if I get into an environment, I don't belong here. If it's a big stage to speak on, or a room that I'm in, or people that are smarter than me, I don't belong here. I feel like I just physically, literally don't belong. Or even different things I've achieved, or levels, or like the first time I even walked into a country club I wanted to join. I don't belong here. They don't know the real me. Like, I don't belong here. And so I just want to give the phraseology from me. Maybe could be male, female. It could be just person to person that's different.
Yes.
Keep going. I interrupted you, but I just wanted to add that.
No, that's so good. I think that sheds a lot of light too because get granular with, for everyone joining us with it right now, just get granular on what that is for you, and by the way, I have another thing. I hope we have time. I want to dive deep on what you just said. I'm going to dive deep in that in a minute with a whole other tactic.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I don't belong here. That's huge, right? I don't belong here. I'm not enough. And at our core, we all want to feel like we're enough and will be loved, right? We all need love and belonging. We all need to be seen and heard and know that we matter. And at our core, that's a huge one.
Did you have the belonging thing? I wonder, because you didn't, your birth mom gave you up real early, right? So like, did your the mother who raised you make you feel like you belonged immediately, or did you struggle with that at all?
I have struggled with that my whole life.
Have you?
Yeah. Not feeling like I fit in, not feeling I belong, feeling I'm different.
Yes. And maybe you are different, and maybe that's a good thing. It doesn't mean you don't belong, but I am different. You are different. I know you. By the way, those of you that are listening, you are different. That's why you're individually you.
Yes.
Right? That's the thing that makes you different is your special sauce.
Yes.
Not the thing that eliminates you from the room or the environment. It's what makes you special to add something to your family, add something to a company, add something to another human being, is these different things about you. So anyhow, you're going down your treasure.
And to add to that, it's your superpower. There, if you are showing up in this world as your authentic self, by definition, you've never been done before. There's never been another you. And we think the thing that is different or quirky or awkward about us is what's wrong with us, but it's actually the thing that's right with us, right? And I don't want to get off on a huge tangent, but like, had I not embraced all the crap that was technically wrong with me, I could have never built a $1 billion company. Like, rosacea is considered a flaw. It's considered something wrong with me. And it's like when I finally started to embrace it and share it and step into it, right? That's when other people felt seen. I was like, oh, me too. And I have skin challenges or this or that or whatever. And it's like, there's a whole chapter in Worthy about this idea of how you're not crazy, you're just first.
I love this.
You're not crazy, you're just first.
Yes.
And oh gosh, okay, I could talk about that for hours, but the lessons around this will change your life. It's why this book just came through me. I'm donating 100% of the proceeds. I'm not even doing this to sell books, but this book will change your life, and I'm so fired up about it. But to get real tactical, back there. So we just did our new definition, your current definition of rejection, which for me is like, proof again, I'm not enough. For Ed is, I don't belong here, right? And take note of what yours is that came to your mind right now. And step one of literally changing your entire life. Again, when I believe this through my core, when you change your relationship with rejection, you change your entire life, your business, your family, your relationships, your goals and dreams, ever stepping into your calling. So I want you to come up with a new definition of rejection that you are going to believe is true and remind yourself of every time it happens. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of this. So, for example, when I went through years of hundreds and hundreds of no's and rejections building It Cosmetics, and I would sit there, Ed, and I would Google all of my greatest heroes or people I thought I had so much respect for. And as I would read their stories, I'm like, oh, they've all gone through tons of rejections in their life, right? Every single one of them, right? And I came to this realization that the people who succeed the most are also the people who fail the most, because they're the people who try the most and keep going. And so I started telling myself this new definition of rejection, which is, ooh, it's a victory. It means I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it.
Yes.
And I started telling myself that every time I call a new retailer on the phone and they're like, oh, no, you're not the right fit for us or this or that or whatever. And it would hurt my feelings. It's not that I was immune to being hurt or whatever, but I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it, which means eventually I'm going to succeed. And I started seeing rejection in this weird way as a positive thing. Another definition that I use a lot is rejection is God's protection.
Yes.
Right? And I use this one a lot, and there are more in my own life, in my own head, right? This is something I tell myself over and over. There's more stories than I can count where I'm like, and by the way, one example is It Cosmetics. I mean, there was one investor midway through the journey that said, he passed on investing. And I thought we were down to almost bankrupt, right? We had under $1,000 in our account, which was the company and our personal, which meant we had a few weeks left before we went bankrupt. And everything was on the line. And I had this big meeting with a potential investor. And you know the story, Ed, but
it's so unbelievable.
At the end, he passed on investing. And I really was thinking he was going to be like my saving grace. And he said that he didn't think women would buy makeup from someone who looked like me with my body and my weight. And it was a whole thing. And
Wait a second. Hang on. Did you all just hear what she said? Okay, I want you to imagine you struggle with worthiness issues. You've been building this company forever. I just want to make sure, because I think what you're about to tell them, the belief system that you took from it, could change the world. So the first thing is, I want to go back.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not crazy. You're just first. I want everyone to just digest that. I want you to hear what this woman said. Who knows about this stuff? You are not crazy to be pursuing your dream.
Yeah.
You're just first.
Yep.
And you're probably first in your family, which is why they're the ones who think you're the craziest. You need to accept this.
Yeah.
Okay? There's a profound... Jamie has this ability to say profound, deep things over and over again, hundreds of them, and she doesn't know. You are not crazy. You're just first. And your family's probably not going to get it. And even in your own company, maybe they're not going to get it. And so that's okay. The second thing is, this woman's struggling with worthiness all of her life. She's getting rejected like crazy up and down. She's also struggled. One of her worthiness issues is she had rosacea. She's struggled with body issues all of her life, if we're going to get really real with Jamie. Okay. Yeah. She's had body issues. So imagine your biggest insecurity is probably that. It's physical. Okay. She's this gorgeous, beautiful woman, but she doesn't know it. And so her number one insecurity is probably her body issue, at least operating out in the real world. She goes into this meeting needing it. She's down to $1,000. Mm-hmm. He not only rejects her, he says to you, I'll let you say it again. Yeah. He tells her the very reason I'm rejecting you is the very thing you think about yourself the most deeply. I want you to imagine this. So go ahead.
Yes. And we had gone through meeting after meeting. We went through the diligence phase. We were so close with this potential investor who's the head of a private equity company. And in the final meeting, it was in person. So he's about 3 feet from me. Paula, my husband, was on the other side. And he says, congratulations. You should be so proud of this product and what you've built, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing. And when I said, can you tell me why? Yeah. It's usually feedback's a gift. And he got very quiet. And he says, you want me to be really honest with you? And I said, yes, please. And he said, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And 2 things though, Ed, okay, because rejections and the pain that they cause can take us out. They can take us down. They can take us out. We can keep replaying them over and over and over in our heads. And by this point, I had so many rejections. This was just one that I thought was going to be my saving grace, that had he said yes. And I remember after I cried in my car, I remember telling myself rejection is God's protection. And I don't know how this is going to be God's protection. I don't see it now. It doesn't make sense to me now. I needed it to be a yes now, but I'm going to choose to believe that, because if I don't believe that, it's going to take me down. I'm not going to get back up and keep going and embracing more rejection and more rejection and more rejection and more rejection, right? And here's what ended up happening. I didn't hear from that guy for 6 years. The day that L'Oreal bought my company for $1.2 billion cash, because they are a public company, it was all over the press, right? Homepage of the Wall Street Journal, everywhere. That was the first time I heard from that potential. Yeah, in 6 years, he said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong.
Gosh.
And what I wanted to say to him, Ed, was, did you ever see Pretty Woman?
Yes, the character's Edward. Of course I saw Pretty Woman. I love that movie.
So when they wouldn't help her in the store, and then she goes back later, what I wanted to say to him was, big mistake. Huge. I can give you 1.2 billion reasons why it was a huge mistake, but I kept it classy. I didn't say that. But here's my point in this. Had he invested, it would have been the most successful investment in his firm's history. But guess what? I was so desperate at the time, Ed. We probably would have given the majority of the company for almost no money, right? Because he didn't believe in me. When we sold to L'Oreal, I was the largest shareholder. So it's like, rejection is God's protection, and sometimes we don't see it when it happens. And so that's one.
Can we say something on that too?
Yeah.
Okay. So because her and I talk about these things all of the time. First of all, it's one of the most unbelievable stories ever, and I've heard it many times. A few weeks ago, I went to watch Jamie speak. I'm in the front row. Obviously, I'm rooting for my friend. But I got emotional again. I started crying again. And actually right now, if I'm not careful, I will, because I'm picturing this woman who all of her life has struggled with worthiness. And then to have someone hit you right where he's hit. But rejection is God's protection is one of the fundamental beliefs I've never heard said before, that if you adapt and adopt that belief in your life, it will change your life. Here's how much your relationship with rejection matters. My children, both, you get that stage, Max and Bella. Both of them are, hey, they're in college, you're getting ready for their careers. And Max's son said, maybe I'll follow in your footsteps, Dad, get into sales in the beginning. And I said, Max, the whole key, if you're going to go into business for yourself, is your ability to deal with rejection. It's the number one thing. Can you deal with rejection? And what's the story you tell yourself? Because it's not the stories of our life, the events of our life that define it. It's the meaning we attach to it. Our friend Erwin McManus had a great post I saw today, by the way, Jamie, where he said, emotions only store in our body when they're attached to a story. So if there's no story, you've had a lot of emotions in your life that don't stick because you didn't attach a story to it. But when you attach a story to it, so that story you tell yourself. So you take it a step further. This is an all-time moment on podcast she's about to give you, just so you know, guys, okay? So not only is rejection God's protection, but what else did you eventually uncover that you realized about what God was doing on your behalf in that rejection in terms of hiding something from him? You guys listen. Your life's about to change in this next 1 minute right here, because if you can adapt this true belief system, it's not only a belief, it's a truth about your life. Your life's about to be very different, including mine the first time I heard it. So go for it.
Yeah. If you're someone that, you are holding on to pain from a past relationship, a past failure, mistakes that you've made, someone who did you wrong, the job you didn't get, the thing that's not going your way, whatever it might be, the partner that screwed you over, whatever it is, right? This definition of rejection is probably the most common one I apply to my life right now, almost every single day, Ed, because sometimes, you know what? A friend doesn't invite you to coffee or include you in a group, and it hurts your feelings, right? Whatever it might be. This is now what I believe most commonly when rejection happens in my life. I imagine my creator, God, saying, oh, no, you weren't rejected. I hid your value from them because they're not assigned to your destiny. And I believe that, right? When things don't go my way right now, when someone, doesn't give me the thing or want me there or include me in the room, whatever it might be, or doesn't get me for some reason. Have you ever tried to make someone you want to connect with them so bad, you want them to like you and they just don't? Whatever it might be, I believe this through my core, and it has changed my life, that I always now hear God saying to me, oh, no, you're not rejected. You weren't rejected. I hid your value from them because they're not assigned to your destiny.
It's one of the all-time greatest things I've ever heard. And I wish every human being could hear it. And I hope you share this, everybody, this episode.
Yeah.
I want my daughter to know that. I want my daughter to know it so badly that when you walk in a room and a boy doesn't notice you like you'd like them to, or you don't get invited to something, or you get rejected in a sale down the road in your life, or if you're in a relationship and somebody leaves you, God had started to hide your value from them.
Yes.
And I'm telling you at 52, and Jamie can tell you as a much younger woman than I am, but having a lot of success in her life, it is so profoundly true that that's what God's doing. He is protecting you in that moment by either hiding your value or taking the perception of your value away when they once did. And sometimes in life, to get you out of a relationship or out of a company or out of a job you have and you've been fired.
Yes.
You've been fired.
Yes.
Maybe they used to value and now they don't. And God's removed that value from them to protect you.
Yes.
It's so beautifully true. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to say it.
It's so true. Yeah. And I love what you said earlier. Share this episode with anyone who needs to hear this.
I wrote a whole chapter once called The Power of You Can't, because you can't, or rejection can be cumulative, where you go, hey, I had 100 no's. I don't have a good brand here. Let me go back to what I was doing. Simultaneously, though, that with a little proof, you realize the more no's is just the build to the yes. Like it's either your fuel or your anchor, right? And I love how you're sharing that. And I want everybody to really think through that. You can take rejection. I mean, the worst part is sometimes we take advice about dating or our relationship from our single friend, or money advice from our broke friend, and we let it sink in. And Jamie, you said it so right. Like we go back to them 5 or 10 times trying to resell them, while simultaneously we're just building more self-doubt for ourselves, because each time you're not breaking through. It doesn't mean your idea is not great. It means they're not qualified, or they don't have the vision, or they tried something and failed. And one more thing I want to share on that. I had a dear friend who has passed. He was born with a rare disease. They told his parents he had a couple of weeks to live, and he lived till 42 and had a freak accident in his wheelchair. It's the only reason he's not with us. His name is Sean Stevenson. He was 3 foot tall. He broke 280 bones in his body and was the most confident, dynamic, amazing man you'd ever meet. Like just when he walked in a room, when he as he said, you guys aren't as lucky as me. When I walk in a room, you might have a couple people look. He goes, I get everybody looking at me. Right?
I
Like
love
that's
it.
the kind of man he was, right?
Yeah.
He's like, so don't be jealous. They're all going to look at me. Don't be jealous. And he'd walk in a room and go, hey, everybody. Hi, I know, right? That's what kind of guy he was. But he was also a psychologist and obsessed on helping relieve people of suffering. And I just want to share one thing that came to mind when you were talking. He said so many times in life, we don't realize when we have a dream, a goal, a desire, a passion, if the people around us that we spend too much time with don't support us, we feel bad for burning our light so bright. So what we do is we turn it down. And I just, when he said that, I'm like, wow. He said, do not turn your light down. Burn so bright that eventually they'll come to the light. And if they don't, that's okay. They have their own journey. And it just made me think of that. Like, don't dare turn down your glow for someone else.
Yeah. And so many times people feel like they need to listen because it's their partner, or their family, or their close friends. They've been friends for 20 years. And so many people, they love, like, and here's the thing, a lot of people around you, they love you. They want the best for you. They're giving you their best advice that they don't believe in your dream. They're giving, like, they care about you. They have good hearts, but like, they only see things through their own lens of experience and limitations, and they're doing the best they can. And it's hard sometimes to go, okay, I need to love all of them from a new boundary, a new distance. And I'm going to talk with them about The Bachelor tonight, or I'm going to talk about the weather, or what we're going to cook for dinner Friday. But like, I'm going to talk to these other people. I'm going to bring new people in my circle that when I want to dream big and I want to like get the right kind of feedback, even when it's critical, the right kind of feedback, because people really get it, that, you know, that's when you turn the volume up on those people. And then that's when you still love all the people that you love, but like, exactly, because energy is contagious, right? So exactly what you just said, the more you have that around you, not only the more you dim your light, but I feel like subconsciously as human beings, we start to dim our own light also to have love and acceptance around us and to match everyone else's energy, and we lower our vibration. It's contagious. So just being mindful of that is so powerful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of your life, if we get the chance to sit down with our maker, whoever you believe your maker is, would you want to say, you know, thank you for putting me on this earth. Thank you for making me a human. You know, I lived a good life. I was going to do more, but you know, my husband, my friend, my mom, my sister, my friend, they thought I was kind of crazy with my dreams, and I didn't want to make them feel bad. So, you know, I lived a good life, and I had some pretty cool accomplishments. Like, I don't think we want that. I think that would be a moment as it was coming out of your mouth. You'd be like, could I get it? Could I go do a do-over, please? Give me one more shot. I want to go. Like, I think more than anything, we would love to be able to say, hey, you know, my friends weren't as crazy and didn't see the potential I had in me, and that was okay for them, but I went for it anyway. I think we'd be okay, even more so than a good life, to say my life was kind of a roller coaster, but I went for it. I found my dreams. I overcame the imposter syndrome. I overcame rejection. I went for it. And I don't think you can end that story if you get up, you know, you say, if you fail once, what do? Try again. If you fail another 100 times, what do? You try 100 different other ways to overcome it. I don't think you can have that conversation without saying, and finally, I had the breakthrough and I got to lean into this full potential and I got to live a more fulfilled life. And I feel like I squeezed all the juice out of life. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think of those crazy things in my life when I'm going to let someone's opinion stop me or a no stop me. I'm like, what am I going to say to God when I'm sitting next to him, that I wasted this life he gave me? Hell no.
And what I'd like to do, Jamie, is I'd like to hear about a couple of them that I would call not headliners, meaning we're going to talk more and I want to hear more about you being rejected. I want you to tell the story about someone being really rude to you and then working for you later on, because I think that's just so much fun. I love that. I want to hear about you getting turned down and then being the dominant product producer on the show that turned you down. I want to hear all that. Your resilience is amazing. But there are some things you did in the early years that are not as public, that were private sacrifices that you made, that Paulo made, that were painful. Could you tell me about one or two of those that don't make the magazine article?
Yeah, so many of those. And thanks for asking about those, and also about rejection. I think that the thing that fills my soul talking about this is I just know there's people that are listening or watching this right now that like feel like they're alone in their rejection, you know, because when we're going through it and we are taking a step of faith and putting our idea out there, or we're leading a team, right? This is the thing I find. I've had the blessing of meeting tens of thousands of entrepreneurs now in my journey. And so many people feel like once they are the boss or once they are the leader of the team, they're supposed to hide their self-doubt or they're supposed to like be embarrassed about their failures or their rejections, or it's only them. But especially with entrepreneurs that take that step out there, you know, in a world where everything looks good on social media, a lot of people feel alone when it's not working out behind the scenes, or when it doesn't feel behind the scenes like it looks online everywhere. Right. And, you know, you and I were at an event where Albert Tate talked about this idea of being overexposed and underdeveloped. And I've just been obsessed with that idea recently because I think that this is a really big topic no one's talking about. So many people right now who are entrepreneurs, who are leaders, who are launching their dream, are in this new world where everyone has direct access, direct to consumer, and everyone can be an expert. Everyone can, you know, look like they have a great business. And so many people right now are overexposed, but underdeveloped. And I think that is a big risk. And so, you know, when it comes to the development part, I look at a lot of that as what you're talking about, those early years that a lot of people don't know, those sacrifices that you know, I'm super honored to share because I know someone out there needs to hear it and know that they are not alone, and it is not all glamorous, and it's not just them. And it's, and I believe, Craig, that no matter how hard or unglamorous the situation or how big the setback or how painful the rejection, I believe it is I know it is no indication of your ability to succeed. It's no indication of, is your idea going to work, or is your company going to make it? Because the more conversations like this that I have with friends, and I love that we're having this one publicly on your show, and I've had a lot of these privately with people that have built huge companies. It happens to all of us, right? We go through massive setbacks, massive rejection, massive seasons of people saying your idea is not going to work. You don't have what it takes. I don't see you working in our industry. I don't think there'll be a demand for this. And just knowing that it's just so important. And in the early years of building at Cosmetics, I didn't know these things yet. So I spent a lot of nights crying myself to sleep. You know, early on, we had no money, and I mean, no money, no money. And it was like, we finally, after all the retailers were saying no, right? Because we'd poured every penny we had into creating a product. And I just thought, if you create a product that's amazing, right? And as long as your product is better than what's out there, and I believed our first product was, it's just going to sell. And I just thought that it would, and it didn't. And I sent it out to all of the big beauty stores, the big department stores, and every single one of them said no. And some of them, it wasn't just like no, it was not no for now. It was like no forever, like no. And so, you know, I eventually thought, let's go direct to consumer. And my husband, we couldn't afford to hire anybody. So my husband built our first website. He bought that book, that big yellow book called HTML for Dummies, and figured out how to build our first website. And I've shared this story with you, but when our website finally went live, I thought it was just going to be this massive success. And the day it went live, we got no orders. And the next day, no orders. And this went on for weeks. And I finally, anyone who works with their partner, this is so easy to do, but I'm like, it's broken. You did it wrong. Like, there's no way that this product is so good. There's no way this website's working. We're just getting no orders for this product. There's no way. And then I remember the day our very first order ever came in, and I was like screaming and running around our office, which was our living room. And he says, that was me. I placed that order to prove to you our website's not broken.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh, and this went on for a long time. And, you know, every penny mattered. Every penny mattered. I remember, really mattered. And so, you know, and it went into our product and into our mission. And we were teetering on this balance of under $1,000 in our bank account for the company and personal combined for a very long time, which meant that if orders didn't keep coming in, like 2 orders a day, 3 orders a day, we'd be out of business. And it was this way for a very long time. And I remember seasons where I would go to the ATM and just like if I needed $20 and I would hit no receipt because like I couldn't even stomach it, like to, you know what I mean? And it was this constant, are we about to go bankrupt? For a very long time. And it's tough when in those moments, and then one big thing to share, just in case someone needs to hear this today, when we finally got on QVC and had been on for a little while, which is a long story I can share in a minute if you want me to. But we still, all of our money was tied up in working capital at that point. So we still weren't paying ourselves. We still had no money. And I found out this giant competitor who was also on QVC and all the department stores, they loved the product. They saw we were starting to have some success and some momentum, and they were huge. And I learned that they went to our manufacturer and they paid them off to get our formula. And it was so legally we owned it, right? So, but we couldn't afford to sue anyone or do anything. And I went through this devastating season where I learned they're about to launch this exact duplicate of our formula, of our product on QVC and in all the department stores. They were everywhere. And I was just like gutted and literally physically sick to my stomach. Like everything we have in our life has gone into this for years. And this product is finally getting momentum. And now this huge competitor is going to swoop in. And by the way, their brand positioning, their DNA of their company is totally different than ours. Like our positioning as our company was clinically proven products, amazing for your skin, real women. And theirs was totally different. And I was like, this product doesn't authentically fit their brand positioning. They just saw this under the radar company getting momentum and thought they can make it big with our product. And I guess that's what happens everywhere in business. But the lesson in this that I don't think I've ever shared on a show, so I just want to share it because I know so many people are in leadership and business listening to this, or so many people with big ideas or worried about people copying them or whatever. I learned the most powerful lesson of authenticity probably my entire life. And this is when we were very small and had no money. And they did knock us off. And then I found out when it's launching on QVC, and I sat there and I watched their launch, right? And there was nothing we could do. And this is what's tough about being small is you have no money to do anything about anything. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's painful because no one wins when you sue anyways. And it's just like, so I worried though, Craig, that they were going to take us out. I worried that they would get credit for this amazing product because we were so small and they were so big. And they launched it on QVC. They launched it everywhere, and it just did okay. It just did okay. Meanwhile, I kept getting booked to go on QVC and sell the same product, right? People didn't know it was the same. I knew it was the same. It had a different package, but it was the same formula. I was going on, and we're crushing it. Like numbers are huge and they are bigger than us, and it's just doing okay. And I was sick to my stomach for months over this until I watched this happen before my eyes. And I learned that lesson that you cannot fake authenticity, that nobody, like customers are smart and you just can't fake authenticity. And this was a product that, even though it was a great one, was incongruent with their positioning. And anyhow, it was a big lesson that I learned. And I remember vowing to myself that one day we would be bigger than that company and they wouldn't even think about doing that to us. And then that happened. And we're so, and the little company in my living room is so much larger than they are today. And one funny thing real quick is, I remember watching, there was a message Joel Osteen did on TV where he talked about the boll weevils, and he talked about how the cotton crops and coffee crops and farmers were devastated and boll weevils were eating them. Anyways, we were so poor, but my husband made me these t-shirts, and he drew an S and a J and a J, like a superhero for Super JJ on the front, and then like a little boll weevil on the back. And I literally wore those shirts to and from QVC under my coat just to try and stay focused. Because Craig, I was in the green room with the competitor that knocked me off and with all the other brands. And I didn't say anything to anybody because it doesn't help. Gossip doesn't help. And being anything other than professional doesn't help. And it was like I was at war I was at war, but I just knew God was on my side. I knew that I would ultimately win. I knew, I just didn't know how, but it was a really tough season. So when you say, what are some of the scrappy things you did in the beginning? For some reason, those t-shirts just came to mind. And I don't think I've ever shared that story before.
Everyone listen so closely to this woman who sold her company for $1 billion plus. So here we go. Take us to the moment.
So yeah, one of the biggest lessons in my whole life came down to this moment where we finally got a shot on QVC, right? And so, we had heard no from them for a couple years. And even Ed, I got their head guy named Alan Burke, who'd built this $1 billion division in QVC of beauty. And he's a legend, like an icon. After, 2 years of no's from them, I finally got him on the phone. And I thought, oh my gosh, if he's giving me a few seconds of his time, like this is good. Like it's going to be a yes finally. And I'll never forget, on the phone, he says to me, we've reviewed your products with our whole buying team and it's unanimous. You're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. And so instantly I go into like, oh, but I am the right fit. Let me tell you why. And I start pitching my heart out, right? And he thanked me for loving QVC, and it was a no. So that was like one of the most memorable nights, because I don't know if you've ever had, bad news in business or something like that. And you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh, fuck, it's like you hoped it was a dream.
Yes.
and it wasn't, right? It was like that for 3 days in a row. I just knew in my gut we're supposed to be on QVC. And it's so, and I knew for years, because I thought, Ed, oh my gosh, I can go live. And unlike all those ads I've seen my whole life that I don't even know if they're real, like, let me show real women, like my mom and my friends and let me show real women. And I believed it. And yet everyone kept telling me no. And finally to get Alan Burke on the phone and hear, literally, I'm not the right fit. When you hear those words, it sucks, right? And by the way, like anyone who's ever been told they're not enough and is tempted to believe it is why I wrote this book. Because there's a lot of people that work really, really hard. And there's a lot of people that still don't quit. They keep going. But like making that decision to believe that you can and that your dream's possible, for me, that's huge. And I just like made the decision to believe it. And and every time I got rejected, whether it was from Alan Burke at QVC or any of the retailers for year after year after year, like I would still approach them as if it was gonna be a yes and send them sales updates and send them product launches. And they're like, who the F is this? And I just made that decision. So 3 years into this, we finally got this yes on QVC. And what happened with this yes and this one shot is literally one of the single greatest lessons I've ever learned in life and in business. So what this meant was we had one chance to sell our product in this 10-minute window live on QVC. And, for anyone unfamiliar with QVC who might be listening, it's a live television show and it's broadcast to 100 million homes. There's no script, no teleprompter. And what I learned, Ed, right before I went on, is that you're given 10 minutes in the case of the segment I got, but that's not a guarantee, right? If you go live and let's say a minute or two in, you're not hitting the sales goals, your clock cuts live. So you might be a minute or two in thinking you have 8 minutes left and you're not doing well, boom, you're down to 1 minute. And you can calculate in your head how much money you just lost and what that means. So we get one shot, we get a yes. And this is like huge, right? Because I knew in my gut, like this is supposed to happen. And I'm going to show real women live. I'm going to shift culture and beauty. Like I knew it. And here's what happened. We got a purchase order and I quickly learned, we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, right? Packing them from our living room, just trying to survive, down to no money. Well, for a 10-minute window at QVC, we had to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer to hit their sales goal or not come back, and their consignment in beauty. So what it meant was if we didn't hit those numbers, we didn't sell in that 10-minute window, everything that we didn't sell got shipped back to us and we weren't paid for it. So, and you should never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose. Yeah. But in this case, it was like, we didn't know how we're going to make it either way. So I thought, okay, this is our one shot. This is going to be life-changing, right? So we hired these third-party consultants that are amazing and they're experts and they help a lot of people sell on television and in retail stores. And, we worked with them on, okay, how do we produce our 10-minute window? And the craziest thing happened, right? When we know what we stand for and we think that we're going to stand for it when it comes down to everything on the line, but then someone else tells you that that's not going to work, it's really hard not to question our own values and not to question our own intuition. These experts told me, in order to succeed, here's what you need to do. You need to use this type of model. And it was the perfect flawless skin, the models I'd always seen in TV ads. And I would say to them like, well, but that's actually not why I created this brand. And I would tell them, imagine if you're 70 years old sitting at home and you see someone you can't even relate to that doesn't look like you. How do you know the product's going to work for you? Or, I have rosacea, or 70% of people have hyperpigmentation. If they don't see someone that looks like them, and we would get into it and argue and fight, and they wanted me to win. But they were literally giving me the very best advice through the lens of their own experience. And the thing that I wish I knew, that I know now, but this would have saved me so many nights crying myself to sleep, is sometimes even experts, even the people that are touted visionaries, right? And they really are, and they would never admit this, but they still often can't imagine in their subconscious something succeeding if they haven't seen proof that it has before, right? And that would have made the rejection sting a lot less, because if you're doing anything authentically, anything that hasn't been done before, anything differently, people often can't even imagine it succeeding because of their own, right? And so all of them told me to do it. And they're like, listen, and we would fight. We got into it and they're like, we want you to win. So I was in this moment where I flew out to QVC in Pennsylvania a week early before this one shot on live TV to either hit their sales goals or basically go out of business. And I went all alone and sat in this rental car in the QVC parking lot because it literally felt so heavy. I knew what my gut was telling me to do, but in that moment, I hadn't seen any proof that it was right. No proof in the form of sales anywhere. I mean, we're doing 2 to 3 orders a day for 3 years in. No other retailer saying yes. Everyone telling me you're not this enough or that enough. But those moments in life where we still have that knowing, it's so easy to doubt it. And it's so easy to think we're wrong and to not trust it anymore. And I sat in this rental car praying and crying and literally asking God to take this from me because it felt so heavy. I felt like everything came down to this moment. Honestly, I was tempted to go against my own gut. I was like, okay, well, maybe if I listen to what they're saying, right? Maybe I'll do that and I'll do really well for a while, then I'll try it my way. And I just sat in that car and it didn't feel right. And I just kept praying about it. And I would imagine who my customer was on the other end. And for some reason, I don't know why, I kept imagining this single mom in Nebraska who was folding laundry and way too busy to remember that she mattered and that she's beautiful. And I just had this moment I'll never forget the rest of my life in that car, that rental car, where I was like, it was just it hit me like a ton of bricks, where I was like, you know what? I would rather go on live television. If she's going to give me 2 seconds of her precious time and look up at her TV screen, I would rather her see me up there showing real women who look like her, calling them beautiful and meaning it, and have her buy nothing. I'd rather do that than sell a shitload of product and stand for nothing. So I knew what I had to do, but sometimes when we know what we have to do, it doesn't mean it's easy to do it. And honestly, I was freaking out. I was so prepared. I had this demonstration on my wrist I was going to do that shows how our product doesn't crease and the top 2 department store ones do. And I get to the live studio, I walk in, we have our 10 minutes, and I go out there on the set live with the host, and I'll never forget, Ed, the clock was at 10 minutes, and it's 9:59, 9:58, shit, I'm on live, this is happening, right? And I was trying to, and I felt literally sweat all the way dripping down everywhere. I didn't want to talk about that. I was free, and I'm not nervous for television, but everything was on the line. And I was trying to do this demonstration I had practiced a million times in my bathroom mirror. And my hand was like this. And I was trying so hard to do it. And the host was like, thank you, sugar. And she pushed it under. And I remember the moment my bare face,
Yes.
bright red rosacea came up on national television, right? And I remember walking over to these real women and calling them beautiful and meaning it. And there was about like 1 minute left in the cell, in the 10-minute segment. And the host was like, the deep shade is almost sold out. The tan shade, we're down to 200. I was like, and then I remember literally right at the 10-minute mark, the sold out sign came up diagonal, like across the screen, and tears like start streaming down my face. And I remember my husband, Paulo, he came rushing through the double doors, and I'm like sobbing, and I'm like, real women have spoken. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I was like, ah! And that one airing turned into 5 that year, 101 the next year. And then we did 250 live shows a year. So I've done over 1,000 live shows myself on QVC, and we grew the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. And it is right now at this moment, to this day. And I only share that because it was 3 years, right, of them saying no, and you're not the right fit. And no one can tell you you're not the right fit. You know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like we hear those, every one of us has heard that in some form or another, that you're not the right fit or you're not enough. And I feel like those aren't the moments where you give up. Those are the moments like you get back up, and with God and grace and grit, like you keep hustling and you keep going and you keep following your knowing. And one more little thing to share with you, just on the topic of full circle moments. Alan Burke, who's the head legend, after we launched on QVC, right? He's the one that said no, and I was crying myself to sleep 3 nights in a row. And he told me I'm not the right fit for QVC, all that kind of stuff. After we launched on QVC, I ended up getting to know him really well. And he became not only a dear friend, but literally one of my greatest mentors in my entire career. He is right now, to this day, one of my greatest mentors. And, you know, he's the one that built that multi-billion-dollar empire at QVC for beauty. When he retired from QVC, we hired him in a paid position on our advisory board. So Ed, the guy that rejected me, was now working for me. Like, no one can tell you you're not the right fit, right? And so, anyways,
you're amazing. You guys, listen to me on this. I went and I got to say that I love you. It's one of the great stories of all time, told by the person still living it. Why do you need to get the book? I'm not selling the book, guys. I'm just telling you. Why do you want to get the book? Why do you want to follow Jamie? Because she really did it. Do you know how rare it is in the business entrepreneur self-help space that it's not someone theorizing about things they think would probably work, but they've never applied? She did this. So what's in this book is gold. You don't have a lot of people on earth who have done what she's done. And then even fewer are like, let me teach you how I did it and how I think. It's very rare. And it's why today's such a gift to be doing the show with you. I have to just tell you, it's interesting because we've met a couple times in green rooms or backstage and different things. And just so you know, Jamie is so kind and has so much humility. And you can't find anyone anywhere who has a bad word to say about her. She's just a beautiful spirit. And so I knew the story a little bit. And then I knew you were going to be on the show. So I was prepping. I already know the work that went in, and I know the result, but I went and watched the clip when you showed your rosacea, right? Yeah. And I found myself, even though I know what happens, I was like, got butterflies in my stomach for you now, even though it's years later. I'm kind of saying quiet prayers for you, and I already know that you won, but it's such a poignant moment to go through all of that rejection. And I think you're giving so many people hope that you stuck to your guns about your beliefs as well.
You know what's interesting? There's a meme online of a kid of a little child learning to walk. And it says something like, you know, when a child is learning to walk, they fall over hundreds of times. And they hit their head and they scrape their knee and they cry and these things. But at no point do they think, maybe this walking thing isn't for me. They don't say, I'm just going to crawl for the next 80 years of my life and just crawl everywhere. They eventually keep getting up and they learn to walk. They balance, they hold on to something, right? Yeah. You've got kids, and so you've seen this firsthand. They never stop trying to walk. Why do you think we as adults stop trying to walk into our dreams or into opportunities when we hit ourselves one time, we fall one time? Why do you think we stop when as kids we never did when we were learning to walk?
I think I've never answered this question before, so I'm just going to pour it right out to you. My like how I really feel about that. I think kids have a knowing inside, an instinct. They want to walk, and they just think that they're going to figure it out. They see people around them walking, and they just do it. It's like a knowing, and nothing's telling them not to trust themselves. And I think that as we grow up, I think that everything around us starts to tell us not to trust ourselves. Like self-doubt is so huge. We get and just to use my own example, and some of the stories that I share for the first time ever in the book is like, it's like when you're in the spot of all the experts telling you they don't believe in you, or it could be other people's opinions, right, telling you they don't believe in you. It could be literally no proof of your own dream or idea that it's going to be successful, right? In those first 3 years of this journey of It Cosmetics, there was no proof that it was like no signs, right? Other than women were starting to post their own befores and afters and spread the word online, which was great.
So you were getting some sales.
Yeah, we were doing about 2 to 3 orders a day on our website.
Were you doing were you going and showing it in person at a live events? Were you doing QVC at this point?
No, not. So QVC was our big first yes, and probably the scariest. Probably the biggest life and business decision, lesson I've ever learned. Was
when did that come? After 3 years?
Yeah, after 3 years.
So the first 3 years, were you going to grocery stores and
I tried
everything, going to the fairground,
any trade
and anything,
show, anything online. We
Farmers
couldn't afford
markets.
to advertise.
Right.
Any different beauty event. I mean, we would. My friends and family would walk into any Ulta or Sephora and be like, and they knew they didn't carry them, but they'd be like, "Can I talk to the manager? Do you carry It Cosmetics?" They're like, "It what?" Like, "Oh, It Cosmetics is so good," and they would try to hustle for us.
It's very Sarah Blakely-esque, where her friends would go and place orders and make it all sell out.
It was that. It was just trying to hustle. And the other thing is all the no's, like every time Sephora or QVC or Ulta would say no, like that was one thing, is that I didn't take it personal, right? That was one, I did a lot of things wrong. That was one thing I did right. And the second they would say no, it hurt, it sucked, obviously. But it's like, okay, I would literally, Lewis, I would decide to believe like it's going to be a yes, and I behaved accordingly. Like I would say, okay, thank you, but one day it will be a yes, and I'm so excited for when that happens. And then what I would do is every time we get like a press placement, or we would be launching a new product or whatever, I would send that buyer who kept saying no, and I'd be like, great news, we just got, in this magazine or whatever, and like one day when your customers get to try this in their store, they're gonna love it. And I think they probably thought I was crazy, but I just decided to believe.
You've got to be relentless in following up too.
Yeah.
You can't just hope that they find out about you. You've got to constantly be following up the way you did, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to look at the magazine and see it. They're not going to see your sales numbers unless you tell them over and over again.
Yeah. And I know you're big on LinkedIn and everything. I would literally scour LinkedIn for any person who worked at Sephora or Ulta or QVC.
Friend them and message them.
Everything, and then try to send them a sample. I mean, it was like everybody. It was, and we couldn't afford to hire anybody. So we got so lean and so scrappy that like in the early years, my middle name's Marie. And so Marie got her own email address. So Marie at itcosmetics.com was like head of customer service. And I would pitch all the Good Morning America. I'd be like, our founder's available for, you know what I mean? It was just like hustling and trying to figure it out. And every time I would check in with my gut, though, no matter how many times I got knocked down, like I still, even though there's no proof around me, I still kept feeling like this was what I was supposed to do. And I made the decision to trust it through those years of no proof around me. And that's the hard thing. And I feel like when you talk about why does a little kid keep trying to walk, but why do most of us just give up? I feel like I feel like so many people either have never heard their own gut or haven't heard it in a long time. And then sometimes we hear it and we don't trust ourselves, right? And instead of putting our own intuition on a pedestal, we put things like other people's opinions or what our partner's telling us to do or our own self-doubt or what the experts are saying or the lack of proof of success around us. And
how do you think we learn to trust ourselves more?
I think that we have to want to. I think we have to make the decision that we need to want to. And that's hard because you know what? The truth is it's way easier to stay in our comfort zone. It's way easier to make the circle around us happy and comfy and not fearful. It's way easy. And I think that chips away at our soul when we do that. I think every person knows, like I think we know deep down inside if we're created for more and we're supposed to give more, if we have more inside of us to give or to serve or to love or to live. I think we all know that deep down inside. And I think that if we don't do something about it, I think it chips away at our soul, and I think we end up literally talking ourselves out of our own truth and literally never becoming the person we're born to be. I know that sounds dramatic, but I think it's true. And I think that I think that's the easy route. So I think the first thing is you have to want to.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to take a lot of courage to overcome your fears and go into that stuff too. I'm curious, the first time you went on QVC, what was that experience like for you? You felt like you had, a few years of building confidence under your belt, or were you extremely nervous right before that first experience?
Literally everything was on the line in that moment, and that's what made it hard. So you know how you can like know your values and know your why and know all these things, and you think you're gonna like stick by them and live them, and then all of a sudden they're tested. I think like all of us have had that happen to us, and after 3 years of hearing no, we got one shot, we got a yes, and we got one shot on QVC. It's a crazy story. So I go into it in the book on how it happened and how we finally got the yes and all this stuff. But what it meant though was we had one shot in this 10
If it didn't sell, you're never coming back.
You're never coming back. And it's live, so there's no script. And QVC is, as you know, but maybe not everyone knows, it's a live television channel to broadcast to 100 million homes, and you have to, like, you're measured in dollars per minute, and so their airtime, they don't have. It's not like a store where you walk in and you can see thousands of products. Only one product can be live on the air at that moment. So you're not just competing with beauty brands. You're competing with Apple iPhone and Dyson vacuum and Vitamix, all the stuff to hit a certain sales. So we got one shot and 10 minutes. And it was a consignment deal. So what that meant was we had to manufacture all the product, pay for it, et cetera, get it all shipped in there.
Yeah, they don't buy any of it.
No, not in beauty at the time. And then whatever, and then if it didn't sell, we would take it all back without being paid, go out of business. And at the time we were doing just, as 2 to 3 orders a day on our website. And what I learned was we'd have to sell over 6,000 units of our product in a 10-minute window to hit their sales goal or not come back. And so Paulo and I together, and Paulo, which is why I say his name, applied for 22 SBA loans and got rejected. It was the 23rd one in California, actually, that gave us an SBA loan just to cover the cost of the inventory for this one shot on QVC. So you should never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose. But at this point, 3 years in, it was like...
It's like make it or break it. You're
make it or break it.
We're going all in, or we're dying on the sword.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we said yes and did everything. We hired third-party consultants, and this is where everything I believed in was put on the line. And they're awesome, and they help a lot of people, right? So they help people sell on QVC and retail stores.
They gave you a different
amazing
strategy that wasn't what you wanted to do, probably.
Right, exactly. They're
all
like,
this is what you need, and you need this perfect model, and they need to be speaking this way, they need to look a certain way.
Because that's what had always been done, and that's what had always worked. And so they wanted the best for me. Like, they were smart and wanted me to win. And they're like, okay, here's what you need to do. Use models with perfect skin, all this. And I would say, okay, but that's not why I created this. And what if and this was pre-YouTube exploding. So I'm like, what if I go on air and just take my makeup off, on live TV and show my rosacea, and what if I'm gonna put models that all different ages and sizes, skin challenges, skin tones, everything. And they were mortified. They're like,
no, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah, and
you're gonna lose it all.
Yeah. And I would say, okay, but if I'm sitting at home and I'm watching and I don't see someone that looks like me, how do I know the product is going to work for me? And but it's really hard when your gut is telling you one thing, experts are telling you another. It's like I couldn't try it both ways. So I flew out to QVC a week before our airing, our one shot, and this might sound crazy to you, but I got a rental car. I sat all alone in the QVC parking lot for a week, every day, just watching the front door of the building, knowing the next time I go in, like I'm either going to walk out with out of
That's
business
crazy.
or with, and I sat there and I prayed and I cried, and it felt really heavy, to be honest, because I didn't.
It's a big moment.
A big moment, because it was like, okay, I'm not nervous for TV, but it was like it felt like everything was on the line, and I tried to imagine who my customer was, who was watching it, like why am I doing what I'm doing, all these things. I remember at one point channeling Oprah. I was like, okay, I remember this time when Oprah was obsessed with the color purple. She told the story on her show, and she wanted it so bad that it consumed her, and she ran around a track and just saying, I surrender all, and asked God to take it from her, because she just couldn't carry it herself. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna try that. So I sat in the car, like literally singing I surrender all and crying. I also was imagining, you might do this, I was imagining like, okay, Olympians, I think that they imagine like what happened.
Visualize. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was visualizing the sold out sign coming up across the screen. I was, all those things. I was sitting in the car, just doing everything that I could, and I also just had this moment where I imagined this woman sitting at home, and if I was going to be blessed enough for her to turn her TV on for 5 seconds, like what did I want to stand for, right? And I was like, okay, if she's going to give me her precious time, even if she buys nothing, I'd rather her look at the TV and see me showing real women and calling them beautiful and meaning it, because you can't fake authenticity, meaning it. And I'd rather have her for a moment feel like she's seen and like she matters and sell nothing than stand for nothing and sell a shitload of product and hit a sales goal.
Right.
And so it was this moment where I just kind of knew. But sometimes we know what the right thing is, but it's also the hard thing, and it's scary.
It's like being in the wrong relationship and your gut's telling you get out, but everyone's like, oh, but they look great on paper, or
And my parents are happy, or this
yeah,
or that.
yeah, and you're like, but I'm torn.
Yes. I feel like everything comes down to our knowing and trusting it in life. And so many people are like, oh, how'd you sell your business for whatever, $1 billion? Like, oh no, that's not the victory. The victory is if we're trusting ourselves and our knowing and where we're supposed to be on our journey. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the victory. And it's like every time I don't do that, that's when I make big mistakes. And when I look back, and that's when I stayed in wrong relationships. That's when I kept employees on too long. That's when all those things. So I'm walking in the QC building and I go into the studio, and there's cameras like we see right now. I know that the second the on-air light goes on, it's
go time.
live. Yeah, go time.
Wow.
Live to 100 million homes, and there's this 10-minute clock. And here's what I learned right before, okay? I learned, you're not guaranteed 10 minutes.
Oh, if it's not selling at 5,
Yep.
see ya.
So exactly. So you might be a minute or two in, and if you're not in real time doing well, hitting the goals, it jumps. Like your clock might go from 8 minutes, boom, you're down at 2 minutes, and you're like, if you try to sell, nothing sells. You know what I mean? And it's just
if
like,
you're forcing it, then people can feel it.
you can feel it, and you cannot fake authenticity. That's the thing. So it was like, okay.
How do you get sales in 2 minutes if they're not seeing sales when you haven't even told the story of the product?
I know,
yet?
exactly. You have to be so just, I know. And so, and I had prepared so hard for this. Like
The consultants taught you how to pitch and how to position and tell the story within a certain time frame and everything.
Yeah, and I literally thought, I walked in there thinking, okay, here's what I'm going to say off the top. Here's how I'm going to do this. And I didn't listen to consultants in terms of models. I'm like, I'm going to show real women all those things. But I'm like, here's how I'm going to do this demonstration on my wrist, all the stuff I had planned out. And then I did my host meeting a few minutes before the show, and she thanked me for my ideas and said, okay, but here's what we're gonna do. So literally scrapped everything.
So we're not doing that.
Nope. And I had, in that moment, I had to trust her, but I also had to just, like, I know, but they're so good. Oh,
they're pros.
They're such pros. Yeah, they know.
So you had a co-host with you.
Yeah, the QVC host, and then I'm I'm there with the
expert.
product.
Yeah,
like the entrepreneur, the founder, and she was amazing and all that. And but at that moment, like I remember the 10-minute clock, and I remember it was like 9:59, 9:58, and I remember like feeling my heart racing.
This is it.
Yeah, and it's so gross, but I remember like sweat. I remember
Yeah.
feeling sweat. And you would talk about how much we love Sarah Blakely. I was wearing 2 pairs of Spanx, and I remember feeling the sweat like dripping. I was like, okay, these Spanx are gonna save me because it's not gonna come through my dress. But then I also remember thinking like, I have to not make this about me or I'm done. It's like, okay, this is about how do I want to shift culture and beauty? Who is that woman watching? Like, if she's going to bless me with her time, how am I going to show up for her? And I remember this moment where my bare face came up on national TV, and then I remember walking to the models, and I was shaking like a leaf. So I had planned this demonstration.
Just like 100 times in the mirror.
Yes, in the
This is what it's gonna
bathroom
look. I'm gonna wipe this thing off. I'm gonna
Yes.
put this on. I'm gonna smile. Yeah.
Yes, and it was so good in my bathroom mirror. And then I'm trying to do this on national television, and this is my hand,
Oh, man.
literally. And the host grabs it, and she's like, "Thank you, sugar." And she took over, and we walked to all the models, and then I remember toward the very end of, I think it was like a minute left, and she's like, "The deep shade is sold out," or "The tan shade's almost gone,"
You're
something like that.
Like what?
Yeah, and I was like, and then I remember at the 10-minute mark, the sold out sign came up across the screen, just like I had envisioned it in the car, in the parking lot. The sold out sign came up. I started crying.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and they cut, and I see Paulo my husband, coming running through the double doors at the studio, and I'm like sobbing loose. I'm like, real women have spoken. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And it was just like, and I was just like, ah. And that one airing turned into 5 that year, and then 101 the next year, and then we did
100?
and we did over 250 live shows a year for
crazy.
8 years. Yeah, so I did over 1,000 live QVC shows myself, but we also built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history, and it is right now. At this moment that you and I are talking, it's right now still largest beauty brand in QVC's history. And I only share that because it was 3 years of them saying, no, you're not the right fit, all those things, right? So it's like, at the end of the day, like, nobody can tell you you're not the right fit.
Yeah, and you also got to know the timing of, maybe if you'd done it 3 years earlier, you wouldn't have been ready.
Oh, totally.
Maybe if you're pitching it, you would have bombed, and you would have never had another chance. You never would have had another chance, and you would have been done. So sometimes the delayed of people saying no is good for you to figure out, okay, how can I become better? How can I be prepared? How can I sell more? How can I do these other things? So that's what I think we got to think about as well is, you know, how are we going to set ourselves up for something when someone says no?
Yeah, and to not be afraid of it.
Exactly.
I mean, to not be afraid of rejection and not be afraid of doing it, you know, imperfectly, any of that stuff. It's so important. Oh my gosh, if I ever got afraid of it, never was easy, but if I ever got afraid of rejection, I would have been done. Like, done. Would have never hopefully had, you know, I hope I had an impact on the beauty industry. That would have never happened. I would have never built $1 billion business. You know what I mean? I think it's huge. And I think it comes down to this, is like just really trusting your knowing. You know what I mean? Every time somebody hurt me or said no or whatever, I would go back and be like, okay, another expert said no. Like, am I wrong? Is my gut wrong? Right? But every time I would get still and just know. And, you know, for me, it's how I've never heard God talk to me, but like I feel, for me, it's faith is part of that. I hear it through my intuition. For other people, it's the universe. Like it's everything. And I just think, you know, you mentioned relationships. I think that we all know if we're in the right relationship. Like
in our gut,
we know. And I mean, I don't think I have a single girlfriend in my life, including myself, who hasn't gone through a relationship where you know he's like sketchy, and you're like, oh, maybe his phone did break for 3 days. Maybe, like, right, you know it didn't break. You know, right. We all know. And I just think that we start to turn up the volume on all this noise in our life, how busy we are, other people's opinions, what our inner circle says, all the things, and we have the mute button on our own gut, and it goes on for so long that we start to not learn how to hear it. And so, you know, for me, and it's not, and I believe everyone has a knowing, and I believe it's always right. And I think that like learning how to listen to it, how to trust it is a journey. It's a process.
I'm curious about.
Do you do that in life though, like with people or friendships? Do you feel a knowing?
No, I feel it. Yeah,
you feel it,
it's
right?
usually pretty quick for me. You know, it's an intuition. But I also research people pretty extensively, and I look at everything. I look at things that they don't even think I might be looking at. And I learn a lot about people by doing research. So before I even speak to them, I'll kind of get a gut instinct. And then they really need to show me, whether convince me that I'm right or convince me that I'm wrong within connecting with them. And sometimes I've been wrong, very few, maybe 2 or 3 times out of thousands of people, where I was like, oh, the things I saw about them, you know, I prejudged them in a way that wasn't accurate. And I took responsibility for that. But most of the time you can get a sense from people, whether you watch a couple videos or just see what they're sharing or how they communicate. So
it's funny, I just get a feeling.
Yeah,
Because, you
me
know,
too.
I've met so many people that are amazing on video. And then I just get a feeling and I'm like, okay, so, you know, and
yeah, do I want them in my life that much? Yeah.
well, and I just think that, you know, listen, I think every single one of us, you know, has miscalculations and misjudgments and makes mistakes and all that. And I don't believe we're our mistakes. I believe we're our intentions, you know? And
Absolutely. We can shift our intentions at any moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Jamie Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.